The world watches with bated breath. Could we be on the brink of another world war? The thought sends chills down our spines, conjuring images of unimaginable destruction. It's a question that has haunted humanity since the end of World War II, a conflict that reshaped the global order. Today, the specter of World War III looms larger than ever. Global tensions are running high, conflicts simmer across the globe. The threat of nuclear war, once a distant nightmare, feels terrifyingly real. We find ourselves at a crossroads facing a complex web of geopolitical challenges. The decisions made by world leaders today will determine the fate of generations to come. It's a time for clear thinking, sober analysis, and a commitment to peace. The stakes are simply too high to ignore the warning signs. Across the globe, regional conflicts and power struggles threaten to erupt into wider wars. These flashpoints serve as stark reminders of the fragility of peace. In Eastern Europe, the war in Ukraine continues to rage, fueled by tensions between Russia and the West. The conflict has already claimed countless lives and displaced millions, sending shockwaves through the global economy. The Middle East remains a cauldron of instability, with the Syrian civil war, the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and tensions between Iran and its neighbors, posing significant threats to regional and global security. The Asia-Pacific region is also a hotbed of geopolitical rivalry, with China's growing military might and assertive territorial claims raising concerns among its neighbors and the United States. These are just a few of the many flashpoints where tensions could boil over, potentially dragging the world into a wider conflict. The world is no longer dominated by two superpowers. The Cold War's bipolar system has given way to a multipolar world, with multiple centers of power vying for influence. The United States remains a global superpower, but its dominance is being challenged. China's economic and military rise has reshaped the geopolitical landscape, creating a new era of great power competition. Russia, determined to reclaim its lost status as a major power, is flexing its muscles on the world stage, as evidenced by its actions in Ukraine. The European Union, facing internal divisions and external challenges, struggles to assert itself as a united force in global affairs. This complex interplay of power dynamics creates both opportunities and risks. On the one hand, a multipolar world could lead to greater balance and cooperation. On the other hand, it increases the potential for miscalculations and conflict. The rules of the game are changing, and the world is still adjusting to this new reality. Economic interdependence has long been seen as a guarantor of peace, the logic being that countries with intertwined economies are less likely to go to war with each other. However, this assumption is being tested in the 21st century. Globalization, while bringing about unprecedented economic growth, has also created new vulnerabilities. Supply chain disruptions, trade wars, and competition over scarce resources have become sources of tension between nations. The rise of China as an economic powerhouse has created both opportunities and anxieties. China's Belt and Road Initiative, a massive infrastructure project spanning continents, has been hailed by some as a boon to developing countries, while others view it as a tool of Chinese expansionism. Meanwhile, the global economy is still reeling from the COVID-19 pandemic, which exposed the fragility of global supply chains and exacerbated existing inequalities. Economic uncertainty can breed instability, making it a factor to watch closely in assessing the risk of conflict. Section 5. The arms race and shifting alliances. As tensions rise, so does military spending. Countries are modernizing arsenals, developing new technologies, and forging alliances. The United States remains the leading military power, but China is rapidly catching up with its modernization program. This includes hypersonic missiles and advanced cyber capabilities, alarming Washington and its allies. Russia, despite economic woes, invests heavily in its military, evidenced by its invasion of Ukraine. Moscow's nuclear arsenal, the largest in the world, remains a major concern. Advanced weapons technologies, including AI and autonomous systems, add complexity and risk. These technologies could revolutionize warfare, but raise ethical and strategic questions. The global arms race is dangerous and destabilizing, increasing the risk of miscalculation and escalation, making the world more dangerous. Section 6. The cyber battlefield, a new front line. In the 21st century, warfare is no longer confined to traditional battlefields. Cyberspace has emerged as a new domain of conflict, where nation-states and non-state actors alike can wage war without firing a single shot. Cyber attacks can cripple critical infrastructure, disrupt elections, steal sensitive information, and sow chaos and confusion. They can be carried out with relative anonymity, making it difficult to attribute attacks and deter aggression. The world has already witnessed the devastating effects of cyber warfare. The Stuxnet virus, which targeted Iran's nuclear program, demonstrated the potential of cyber attacks to cause real-world damage. Russia's interference in the 2016 US presidential election highlighted the threat posed by cyber attacks to democratic institutions. As countries become increasingly reliant on digital technologies, the threat of cyber warfare will only grow. The world must develop new norms and rules of engagement for cyberspace to prevent it from becoming a lawless Wild West. Section 7. Nationalism and Identity, Fueling the Fire. Nationalism, once a force for unity and progress, has re-emerged as a potent source of division and conflict in the 21st century. Fueled by economic anxieties, cultural insecurities, and political opportunism, nationalist sentiment is on the rise around the world. From the rise of populist leaders in the West to the resurgence of ethno-nationalism in other parts of the world, we are witnessing a dangerous trend of inward-looking us versus them rhetoric. This divisive rhetoric undermines international cooperation, erodes trust between nations, and creates fertile ground for conflict. Identity politics, which emphasizes group identity over individual rights, further exacerbates tensions. In an increasingly interconnected world, people are clinging to their identities, real or perceived, as a source of belonging and security. This can lead to intolerance, discrimination, and ultimately, violence. The challenge for leaders is to find ways to promote inclusive national identities that embrace diversity and foster a sense of shared humanity. Section 8. The Diplomatic Tightrope. In these uncertain times, diplomacy is more important than ever. Open lines of communication, dialogue, and a willingness to compromise are essential to prevent misunderstandings, manage crises, and find peaceful solutions to complex global challenges. However, the diplomatic landscape is becoming increasingly treacherous. The rise of nationalist leaders, the erosion of trust between nations, and the proliferation of misinformation and propaganda make it difficult to build consensus and find common ground. International institutions such as the United Nations are facing a crisis of legitimacy. These organizations, created in the aftermath of World War II to promote peace and cooperation, are often seen as ineffective, outdated, or biased. Despite these challenges, diplomacy remains the only viable path to peace. The world must invest in strengthening international institutions, promoting dialogue, and building bridges of understanding between cultures. Section 9. Historical Echoes, Lessons from the Past. To understand the present and navigate the future, it's essential to learn from the past. History shows how miscalculations and unchecked aggression lead to catastrophic consequences. World War I serves as a cautionary tale. Alliances and diplomatic blunders turned a regional crisis into a global conflict. World War II taught us the dangers of appeasement and the need for collective security. The Holocaust reminded us of the importance of human rights. We must defend democratic values and resolve disputes peacefully. Section 10. Can we avert disaster? The world stands at a precipice. The forces pushing us towards conflict are real and deeply concerning, but it's not too late to change course. Preventing World War III requires a collective effort from all nations. It demands strong leadership, wise diplomacy, and a shared commitment to peace. We must invest in diplomacy, strengthening international institutions, and promoting dialogue between nations. We must address the root causes of conflict, including poverty, inequality, and climate change. We must reject the politics of division and fear, embracing tolerance, understanding, and cooperation. The challenges are immense, but so too is our capacity for hope and resilience. The human spirit has overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles before. We can do so again. Section 11. Conclusion: A world on edge. The world is a dangerous place, fraught with tensions and uncertainties. The threat of a global conflict, though not imminent, is real and growing. We must be clear-eyed about the challenges we face, but we must also be resolute in our commitment to peace. We cannot afford to succumb to fear or resignation. We must choose hope over despair, dialogue over division, and cooperation over conflict. The future of humanity hangs in the balance. The decisions we make today will determine whether the 21st century is remembered as an era of peace and progress, or as a descent into darkness and destruction. The choice is ours.